Someone once told me that they thought I had an overdeveloped sense of corporate guilt. And I, by and large, think they were accurate. What that means is every one of us has some sense of what it is to feel guilty about something that we've done or not done in our own life. In fact, the church, we make confession, don't we, regularly about our sins of commission or our sins of omission, how we have not loved you as Lord as we have loved ourselves, and so it goes on and on and on. So most of us have a fairly clear sense of that which that standards by which we have fallen short and leaves us with a sense of guilt in our own failure. That's not what this is about. Corporate guilt is really about looking at the mess that's in Ferguson, Missouri, an 18-year-old who ended up dead because he was walking down the street. That was his crime. An obscure group of religious people stuck on the top of a mountain in Iraq because extremists are going to kill them unless they convert. People in West Africa dying of Ebola virus, and others criticizing the fact that two United States medical personnel were brought back to the United States to be treated for that disease, and were falling under criticism that somehow now they have been put at danger. And so it goes on and on and on. The fact of it is that I often find myself wondering how I am complicit in those things. So when I look, for example, at people living under the ravages of war in Iraq, I actually wonder, how have I been complicit in decisions that have helped to create that reality? That's called corporate guilt. When children die of treatable diseases or malnutrition, I often find myself languishing under a sense of, how am I complicit in that? How could I have chosen differently so that wouldn't have happened? Well, you get a sense where this can go, and it can become pretty overwhelming. And sometimes it can lead to a sense of depression, or even um, just kind of an overblown sense of guilt about what should I or should I not be doing. Now, I know I'm not the only person who lives with that reality. So this is where the gospel becomes so important. This is where the story of faith and my playful little figurine buddy Christ, where my confession of faith in the person of Jesus the Christ, God's anointed, becomes so critical. The second lesson this Sunday, the epistle lesson from Paul's letter to the church at Rome, has these words: just as you were once disobedient to God, but have now received mercy because of that disobedience, so they have now been disobedient in order that the mercy shown to you may now be received by many, that same mercy. And this is where grace becomes so confounding, and yet at the same time so utterly hopeful. We are all conscribed by virtue of our sinful nature to be disobedient, and sometimes that disobedience can take some hideous, horrible, evil tacts that can justify the death of tens and tens of thousands of people for ideology, and that is just nothing but evil. Evil. I don't care. I don't care if that's from some Islamic a terrorist, or if that comes from our own political system. When we can justify somehow the loss of life for political ideology, I want to tell you that is not the gospel. So the point is this: on some level, we are all conscribed to disobedience. That is the reality of our nature. But in the economy of God's plan, that becomes the necessary piece so mercy can also be given to all. And that's why grace is so utterly confounding, amazing, and so often so difficult to get our head around. We all have been conscribed to disobedience. That is, our natures are all given over to that. And somehow God accepts that. Certainly God would love for us to be better, would love for us to choose a different road where we would value the life of every person as much as our own. But yet it is in that disobedience that we all make manifest, some to a greater degree than others, but all of us have it, was necessary in order so God's grace might be distributed to all people. Therein lies my answer to corporate guilt. It's not how I would have chosen it, Lord. So many of these things I would have chosen it to be very, very different. But this is how it is. Yet, in this disobedience, your grace will be made known to all. And for that I give thanks. That's thanks be to God. If you have some thoughts, if you have some reflections on this, I invite you, please send me a response on my email. I'd love to hear from you, and I will promise to get back to as many of you as possible. God bless you. I love you. I keep you in my prayers. I ask that you would do the same for me as well. Bye-bye.